Welcome to the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook, got RT Young. We're back, had SEC Media Days, provide a little bit of an interruption, some travel, provide a little bit of an interruption, but hey, we're back going over and putting the brisket in the microwave, right, RT? So make sure you like the
Lincoln
video.
Riley,
Make
Lincoln
sure you
Riley style.
Exactly. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, go to InsideTexas.com. $1 will get you access all the way up until August 30th. That is kickoff of the Ohio State game. We'll talk a little bit about that. Camp starts, I think, just over a week from today. So you're not going to want to miss any of the updates provided by Eric Naleen, Justin Wells, Ian Boyd, Charlie Williams, myself, Paul Wallington, and of course, RT Young, and of course, Evan Veith, and all the different sports we cover, whether that's football, recruiting, basketball, baseball. Come join Inside Texas for just $1. But thinking Texas football is out. Paul Wadlington's 2025 Longhorn Football Prospectus, the best preview. Look at every player, every position, every opponent, every SEC team. A look at the landscape of college football, and then a little bit of an overview from our Eric Naleen on the 2025 class. So make sure you go find the link in the description for that. Today on the Reheat, we are going to talk about how Steve Sarkisian has a hungry team and how that's maybe a little bit different from years past and the way that hunger looks. Could Texas be number one in the preseason poll? And then we got to look back a week at SEC Media Days with Steve Sarkisian getting a weird walk-up song. So let's go over Steve Sarkisian having a hungry team. This is something he's talked about, RT, throughout the offseason. And I think we've always been able to see Texas teams that are hungry, but I feel like there's a different type of hunger this year because it's not a hunger to get back, it's a hunger to stay.
Yeah, and I think there's no bones about the fact that I think this team wants to win a national championship, and that's their expectation. And I'm going to write something a little bit later this week, but just about how fan expectations and Sarks haven't always been aligned. And this might be maybe a little bit last year, but this might be the first year where I think they are aligned. I think that Sark is expecting this team to compete for a national championship, at least make it to the game. And I think the fans are as well, where, you think about Sark's first year, people thought, oh, we're just going to rinse our mouth out from the taste that was Tom Herman, and we're just going to snap our fingers, and this team, Bijan Robinson, is going to be really good. And that obviously didn't happen. There were flashes. And then I think the next year people thought, oh, well, if Quinn Ewers is anything like his high school tape, then we're going to be great. And those first 2 years, Sark was really always pumping the brakes. But then you have year three. He has that comment on the podcast with Fred Taylor and those guys. This is starting to look like my team. So, you maybe fan expectations were a little bit higher, but, he at least is showing that, hey, what I am trying to do in Austin is starting to be put in place. The players are the players that I want to recruit, that I want to develop. But then the move to the SEC after the semifinal against Washington really almost made there be a little bit of a speed bump, because you had to see Texas prove what they proved that last year in the Big 12 in the first year in the SEC, to where you couldn't necessarily skip ahead to national championship conversation because you wanted to see it for 2 years in a row, that proof of concept, so to speak. And now I think they're free to explore these fantasies and search and make this their goal to win the national championship. The playoff obviously is a much friendlier system than it used to be, where a week one loss to Ohio State wouldn't derail all your hopes and dreams. But yeah, I think that this is the first year in a long time where player and coach expectations are just as high, if not higher, than the fans.
And one of the things that Sark mentioned that I thought really shows how this is not starvation anymore, but like being insatiable, is that guys like Arch Manning and Anthony Hill and Manny Muhammad, those are the three he pointed out, but basically the 2023 class, for the most part, this is all they know when they think about Texas. I think he mentioned that Michael Taft is the only player left on the team from the 5-7 season. So most of these players, and even if they were, arch committed before the 2022 season got going, before Texas went 8-5, but there are a number of players that didn't commit. Anthony Hill until December. Colton Vasek was in November, so they basically at that point saw a winning Texas. And then they joined the 2023 team. We're on the 2024 team, to where that's all they know. And they don't want to leave that point. A lot of Texas teams past, and you could hear it with recruits, would say, oh, we're trying to get them back. Well, when you're talking to recruits in the 2026 class, their freshman year was that 2022 season. That was when, a lot of these high school recruits who we are very surprised they're not college football junkies who sit on the couch all day on Saturday for 9 hours. They may watch one or two games and then just, see what they see whenever coaches talk to them. But all these players who Texas is recruiting right now from their freshman year, they've seen a winning Texas during their time in high school. And players in 2027, they will continue to see more of a winning Texas as they go forward there. So I really am it's one of those many, many stories where it's like, wow, we've come a long way to where you're talking about, oh, we're going to bring them back. We're going to bring them back. And now these players want to keep them in the same spot. And I think, to be fair, too, like, I think Steve Sarkisian understands that that might be an even bigger challenge than getting back up. And I think he's seen his team culture get to a point to where they're ready to take on that challenge.
And I think it's pretty interesting to compare guys who you view as peers because they've started on the same defense for several years now. But think about Michael Taft, or even last year, a guy like David Binda, all they've seen in their college career, or Jade Barron, or the year before, someone like Christian Jones. Yeah, so many waves, and they're just riding the waves of coach turnover and coordinator change and the recruiting landscape completely changing. Compare that to a guy like Anthony Hill in his 3 years in Austin, where his second game as a Longhorn, Texas beats Alabama and Nick Saban by 10 in Tuscaloosa. And then now he's been to 2 straight semifinals, and his very likely last year in Austin is probably going to coincide with another deep playoff run, and hopefully a lot more than that. But it's interesting how much has changed, and I think Texas fans lose sight of the fact that 5-7 clouded that this ship was righted pretty quickly. You went from, oh man, we're losing to Kansas, and what are we going to do? Or are we going to have to go through another coaching search, to their mainstays in the college football playoff in a relative short amount of time, to where it didn't even last entire players' careers in Austin.
There's a lot of people in college football who talk about year zeros and what that looks like. There's some people who question whether that exists. It definitely doesn't exist at a place like Texas, no matter what your recruiting looks like, but you can get off the mat a lot quicker, like you mentioned, with the portal, with recruiting, with some of the advantages Texas now has and is able to boast. But that doesn't make it any less impressive to go from 5-7 to competing for playoff spots. Before we keep going, got to show some love to our sponsor, and that is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512, or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description, as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
One thing that we're going to be tracking, I don't think it comes out for a little while, but we've seen so many of the different polls for conferences. We've seen betting odds talked about a lot. And we're going to see probably a lot of outlets start doing power rankings, preseason rankings, things like that. In Ohio State, they're at Big Ten Media Days today in Las Vegas, a well-known Big Ten market. they're going to probably be talking about potential for 1 versus 2, that type of thing, maybe them being number one. And at some point, we're going to have to consider the possibility that for the first time ever, which is so crazy to say, Texas could end up being number one in the preseason AP poll.
Yeah, that it'll really be the first time ever. I don't think I realized that. That's wild. I if I had to bet on it, I would say Texas is definitely going to be number one in the AP, but I can't see them being number one in the coaches. Can you? I feel like coaches typically go with just the safer bet. They're not going to project necessarily on like Texas and Arch Manning. I think they would maybe just give the nod to Ohio State for winning the national championship. So you might see a one versus one to open the season, which that has to be the first time that that's ever happened.
I do wonder. I mean, if all these coaches are going to go on anonymously about how good Arch can be and how loaded Texas is, and then turn around and tell their SID to vote Texas number two, then it wouldn't surprise me. But it also would be a little bit of come on, why aren't we being consistent here? I think it was 2022 where someone gave Texas a number one vote in the preseason poll, even though they were number 18 in the coaches poll, and I couldn't find it in the coaches poll. I don't exactly know how long that one's been around, but I think I don't know if they've had a preseason number one in the coaches poll as well. But this is really just, there's always fun, and I like the way Steve Sarkisian framed it, and I think I forwarded that over to you. As at least he, as a coach, he doesn't care. But we also kind of like what I was talking about with the high schoolers, not sitting on their couch every Saturday. There are a lot of people who maybe just kind of tune into the playoff. Like everybody who's watching this, they're college football junkies. There may be junkies for everything else, but they know who James Franklin and Steve Sarkisian and Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley and Billy Napier are off the top of their heads. There are some people who, don't live in college football markets, but big cities nonetheless, who the first time they hear anything about college football, they look and see, oh, so-and-so's ranked this in the AP poll. And I think Sark made a really good point about how it does drive conversation, sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's been an established conversation too. It's not like, this just popped up a few years ago. They've been doing this poll since the 1930s. And it's a legitimate one. You get 65 different opinions of people who watch the sport, of media members who watch the sport to varying degrees. You're going to get some people who pay attention. You're going to get some bad ones. But at the same time, it helps bring a conversation around. And then I like Sark's viewpoint where it doesn't really matter. The only time number one matters for people inside the program, is during the playoff selection show, but also at the very end of the year.
Yeah, and you saw Texas, were they number one for 3 weeks last year? I don't think that necessarily. Obviously, the Quinn Ewers injury was what was much more detrimental in the loss to Georgia at home. But I don't like being number one early in the season. I think this year it's going to be unavoidable, and Texas is going to have to live with that expectation and that weight resting on their shoulders. But man, I grew up in Austin, partial to 2005, where they're number two for the entire year, and they're always playing the role of the hunter, not the hunted. So obviously we know that anytime somebody sees the Longhorn logo on the helmet in Texas on someone's chest, that they're going to get the best game from their opponent. But that number one does add a little bit of juice. But it goes back to what you're saying, that if Texas is number one, and they keep that ranking for the majority of the year, they're going to have to stay a hungry team, and they're going to have to keep coming up with ways to, keep their eyes on the prize, continue to be motivated, which is something that Steve Sarkisian's teams, you're reminiscent of Michael Jordan a little bit, and how they'll find little slights in things that will keep them motivated against an opponent. Man, think back to Iowa State a few years ago, that last game in Ames. I can't remember what was said. I think it was directed at Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, but oh my gosh, you just saw that interior defensive line it was like someone said something about their moms and they played like it. So they're going to have to come up with those all year if they have that number one ranking.
I think Texas has been ranked number 2 in the preseason poll 5 times. Ohio State has been number 1 in the preseason poll 8 times. So still kind of one of those quirky Texas football history things that, a program that's had dominant runs just kind of tends to coincide with other programs' dominant runs, and, 1 or 2 votes may be the difference between number 1 and number
Yeah, does
2.
does
Before
Clemson pull like a Ralph Nader, and do they come in and get so many hipster writer votes for the number one spot that they really throw off? That'll be interesting. I think they'll get a lot more number one votes than anybody would have thought would be possible 6 months ago. You've seen a lot of writers as they've done their own polls put Clemson as number one. So I think definitely in the AP poll, they'll get quite a few.
And to that point, Clemson has 2 number 1 preseason rankings, 2019 and 2020, more than Texas. So, and the Ralph Nader reference, I appreciate it, but we'll see how many other people are going to get that one on, especially on Al Gore's internet, right? So,
yeah,
got to make sure, shout out to the 2000 election.
Yeah.
Before we keep going, got to show some love to our other sponsor, that is David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
We haven't been able to do this since SEC Media Days, but SEC Media Days had one of the funniest moments I think that we can remember. And I've got it queued up. The video is from On3's Twitter account, but it comes from Travis Brown, who works for, I believe, KBCS. He works for one of the TV stations in Bryan College Station. And let's just go ahead and listen. They usually play the fight songs of the respective head coaches when they walk up to talk at SEC Media Days. This time they didn't play a fight song. They played something else.
Thankfully he didn't. Thankfully he didn't start swaying.
The funny thing there was no one would be able to see this. The Texas table, I guess, was kind of all in one area and just rolling, just going nuts at the fact that they played the Aggie War Hymn right before Sark. But here's the funny part, and I think everybody noticed this. Sark didn't care. He just went off and went on to his typical spiel.
Do you think he realized that, I don't know how much NCAA, that's how I feel like I'm a fight song expert, is from all the NCAA football in the early 2000s that I played. Do you think that he realized that it was the Aggie song, or that he just thought, oh, they messed up my intro music,
Probably like they messed up. I bet at that point, I know he's there, but he's got headsets on. He probably just hears any music and thinks, okay, that was some other Texas song that they played, not even knowing that it was the Aggie War Hymn. And Mike Elko and Greg Sankey had a little bit of fun the next day. They got their music right. They didn't play the other Texas fight during their walk up to the podium.
That should have been the punishment. Mike Elko should have had to walk out to Texas fight.
Well, then that would have just been another sign of, the SEC pandering to a team that just joined and came in and decided, it was going to ruin the league. But I like the focus that Sark showed. Just went on like nothing was happening, and everybody else realized what was going on, and maybe that's all it was intended for. But hey, if A&M really does believe that Texas came in and tried to throw its weight around, well, then maybe that's one way they got one over on the Longhorns. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you have not done so yet, head to InsideTexas.com. $1 will get you access all the way up until August 30th. That is training camp. That is remaining recruiting decisions. That's everything you need to know about the Longhorns all the way up until kickoff at Ohio State. And of course, Thinking Texas Football, link in the description. Paul Wadlington's look at every player, every position, the landscape of college football, every Texas opponent, the SEC, and then Eric Naline has a look at the 2025 recruiting class that is ranked number 1 and is on campus now, will be a key part of those efforts to make Texas number 1 in the end. So, RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching the Reheat, and we'll see you next time on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com.